Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chat for today. It is November. What day is it? Oh, I think it's the 5th November. No, November. I said November. We're in March. Could be November. It's November somewhere. Maybe where it's November in my brain. I'm actually glad it's no longer November. We're past the worst part. I think we're in March now. We're looking forward to warmer weather, a little warm up, at least for us in the northern hemisphere. Today, I'm talking about marketing. This is a core topic. I say core topic in all caps because it is something that we repeat annually. It is something that we usually cover through the intro to consulting workshops or the pre-conference workshops that we see at AEA that Laura Keene and I do. And this is actually usually Laura's topic. I borrow a little bit liberally from her, but I also bring in my own piece of it. But marketing is generally like, how do I put myself out there to talk about getting some work? So let's just talk about how most of us feel when I say the word marketing. I think this, and then perhaps we might even feel this way. Now, when we're thinking about marketing, sales is usually the term that comes up. And here's Alec Baldwin from the movie Glengarry Glen Ross. And this is a movie about salespeople closing sales, the hard sales process. And I think this is what we're thinking we need to go out and do and just knock on doors like the Fuller Brush door-to-door salespeople back in the day. And, never say no, never, you've always be closing is the phrase here for ABC. But the truth is, this is actually the way we're talking about marketing or sales in the 21st century in our approach. Because sales are not about finding strangers to buy your product, perhaps as the door-to-door salesperson might do it. The reality is most of our sales or the new contracts come from relationships that build over time with people that we like, who like us, and who are fit within our niche. And we've talked about the niche and last month. This idea that we're engaging in things that we are good at, that we enjoy, where there's an opportunity to get paid and that, fulfill what the world needs. And as you go out and you're finding your niche, and you're engaging within it, you're going to surround yourself with people who are your colleagues, who are your clients, who may be your subcontractors, who may be program officers, who are people who oftentimes are very much like you, who you enjoy being around. And this little picture of these women talking this is the way that we market ourselves, because marketing happens not through the sales piece, but through that just natural engagement of communication that happens naturally through the pursuit of our niche. This is an example of something that happened this week to me, and I'll let you read this. This is an illustration of how marketing works. So in this situation, I was invited to be a part of a grant writing process for a NASA grant, and it's a statewide thing. And there's a huge number of partners coming together. And one of the partners is national, and they said, we're working with states all across, people putting together programs just like this all across the country. We like what you're doing with the state you're working with. Would you like us to introduce you to other people? And the point is, I showed up to these meetings. Previous to that, I had engagement with the lead PI, principal investigator, doing good work for him. He loves what we're doing. He invited me to this. He invites me to a lot of projects that never get funded, but that's okay. That's part of the game. And I show up prepared. I show up engaged. I kind of have a goofy demeanor. I'm a Kansas basketball fan, and they're in Arizona, so I had to talk about how Kansas may likely beat Arizona, which they didn't. They lost. But then I was gracious through the loss. I talked about the things that I'm good at, the ways that I can contribute just through natural conversation. And this is the sort of email that came out of it. So this is an example of how marketing works, just by doing this thing that we saw in the previous picture here, This is the example. So when we're talking about a consulting practice, I like the old idea of a three-legged stool. There's obviously the evaluation work. It's what we're all here to do. This is our background. This is our field of expertise. You have to do the administration. The administration is another major piece. That's making sure you've got insurance in place, and you're coordinating contracts with subcontractors, or you're developing that contract with the client, you're invoicing, you're talking to your lawyer, whatever. You're making sure that you are getting paid and your bank is everything, all the bills are paid. But the piece that we're talking about today is the marketing, the business development piece. And so I think this is an important piece that I'm not sure everybody thinks is its own major piece of what you do in a consulting practice. Obviously, the evaluation work, we could just do the evaluation work and let everybody else do that for us. We're probably not running our own consulting practice. We're just plugging into somebody else's work. But you do have to think about these other two legs. And I do think these two legs are separate, because the marketing and business development is separate from that administration. It's a whole different skill set, it's a whole different way of thinking about things. So let's do some review by the surveys. As you know, there's been several different surveys over the years. There was one way back in 1998. I don't know if we have any reference to those here. There was one that was done in 2005. When I first joined the TIG and was on the TIG leadership team, we had a survey done, I guess it was about 2012, by Amy Germuth. I was responsible for a survey in 2015, which is where I use a lot of data, because I was part of that team that did the survey in 2015, and then there was another one that's done in 2022. So we're going to look at the last two surveys, the 15 and the 2022. Frankly, with marketing, I don't think it has changed that much. Maybe we'll see it changing because of AI and other things coming up, but I think a lot of this still rings true. At least it rings true for me. So back in 2015, now this is a survey of 292 people responded who were affiliated with the Independent Consulting TIG. And here's I'm going to put it in quote marks, best. It's underlined and red here. Best marketing approaches, right? So we were talking about pro bono work. We're talking about getting up in front of people and doing presentations, responding to RFPs. Hold your thoughts on that one. There's a lot to be talked about there. Actively soliciting referrals from past clients, and actively soliciting new work from past or perhaps actually current clients, which is usually the best strategies. And that's what you find. You're most likely to find your next project comes from a source, somebody that you know, or who knows somebody that you know, because that's the last two here. Now, responding to RFPs is at the very high end of this other survey. Now, these questions were worded differently, and I can't quite get at the psychology of why the RFPs were so high. And the 52% was based upon a different kind of a scale. So this was 268 responses on the survey that happened in 2022. Again, you see things that are similar to the last one. And the way I like to think about this is I put them next to each other, and you see past clients, you see referrals as a repeated theme, and you see RFPs. Now, one thing I want to talk about with requests for proposals or RFPs, there's different strategies to RFPs. There's the cold and the warm RFPs. I think we did this as a presentation not too long ago. It was last fall. The warm RFP is one where people are saying, hey, we'd like to work with you. Can you help us write a proposal to the National Science Foundation? You'll be the named evaluator. That's one version of an RFP. The other is state agency issues out. This is the cold RFP example. State agency issues a request for proposals for an evaluator to do a project, or maybe a foundation does this, and they post it at eval.org, right? And everybody and their brother responds to it. What we find, there's two different strategies with RFPs. The first one, where it's the warm RFP, that's a great way to market yourself and to develop new work, because you're kind of listed as that identified evaluator. You're a sole source, as some might say. The second one a lot more complicated. If you've got that skill set, you've got the time, you're going to find that you may be successful, but you're going against a lot of competition. Some of us, there's debate here, but if you're busy enough, you usually aren't responding to the cold RFPs because it's a very time-consuming process and it doesn't always net, doesn't have a high win rate. However, you'll also hear people say those are the big ones, and I've been successful doing it. So I'm sure later on, usually with the marketing conversation, we'll have a debate back and forth on how great the cold RFPs have been for certain people. And we even had a whole presentation on doing that from one of our colleagues, Tamara Hamai. She is very successful at the cold RFP responses. All right, next thing. So what percentage of the new projects you started came directly from each of the following sources? And so you see, again, some of these same repeated themes: new work from existing clients, direct referrals from existing or past clients, direct referrals from colleagues, other, whatever the heck that means. I don't know what other means. Request for proposals is low here, so you see there's some debate here, and I think it's the way the questions are worded and people are looking at it. And then I thought this was really fascinating: your firm's own marketing efforts, right? And that would include networking or email marketing and speaking. And so new projects are not coming very much from marketing efforts. So I'm hoping to help you understand that traditional marketing, like perhaps what we saw with the Glengarry Glen Ross example and Alec Baldwin, are not necessarily the way we actually get work, but it's the way people think about, quote unquote sales. But I'm gonna challenge some of that too. All right, so I'm gonna get into five and a half suggestions slides, and then we're gonna wrap it up, and we will get into the conversation piece. So these are the things, and these are actually I would say slightly controversial. I know about half of you guys are going to yell at me and say I'm wrong about the things that I say, but these, I'm just going to be completely transparent with you. These are the things that I don't do. First one isn't that controversial, but I'll also tell stories about how I think this works for other people. Direct mail. What is direct mail? I send a letter, a postcard to an individual, perhaps somebody I know, perhaps somebody I don't know, out of the blue. They get it, pull it out of the mailbox, they open it up and say, oh, I'd like to work with Goshen Consulting. Okay, I'll give them a phone call. I don't do that. I've done it actually, and it didn't work. I sent letters to all of the NSF principal investigators in Missouri and Illinois just to see if they would engage. And it was a kind of a test on the same thing, see if anybody would engage, and I got no engagement whatsoever. So it didn't work. That being said, I do know of an example of Robert Hoke, who's in Indiana. He sent out postcards to past clients, and they were like cute little comic strips. And he was slow on work, and all of a sudden people started calling him, and he got a whole bunch of new work. So there's examples of this working. All right, next thing I don't do sponsorships for the purposes of generating new leads. I haven't really seen this work. Now, we have given consideration to doing sponsorships at the annual GPA conference. I've heard of other people doing that, where you get a booth and you sit there and you can talk, hey, I'm an evaluator, come talk to an evaluator. I know some of you guys have worked on this, and I think there's probably a place for that, but generally sponsoring things, putting our name in a program, I'm not entirely sure has been effective for me. That's my take. Working outside your niche. If you are an education person, be an education person. If you don't know anything about public health, don't try and pursue work in public health, even if a bunch of people are making money over here. You're an education person. That's what you like. That's what you do. Plus, it's probably not going to be sustainable over time because it's not your thing, right? Public health is public health. Education is education. They're different clients. They often have different kind of ways they go about the world. Public health is great for a lot of people. It's not what I do. Digital marketing. Okay, let the chat begin. Everybody, I know almost all of you guys connect through LinkedIn. You do your Twitter or X or whatever they want to call it. And certainly, it's a place to spend time when you don't know what to do with yourself. I don't spend a lot of time there. I get on it occasionally. I usually find out things that are very interesting to me, and then I move on with my life. Like Krista Kristen Rollins had a wonderful story about her dad being an inspiration to her as an entrepreneur. I saw that yesterday. I was really excited to read that. So I don't know if she's here. If she is, I'd love to hear more about it. But anyway, last thing, I don't do newsletters. So we've had at least two, maybe three different um, uh, guest presenters talk about how they do newsletters over the years and how successful they are. And so it's a lot of time for for me. It doesn't feel like it pays off. What you're trying to do with a newsletter is to be top of mind and to provide something that people need or engage with you in a way that feels real and human. And so next time, hey, I need an evaluator. I'm thinking about this evaluation thing. Oh, I'll work with Goshen because I just saw their newsletter. We don't do it. I'm not saying we won't ever, but it's not something we do. But again, write in the comments how much you love your newsletters, and I get it. It works for some people. All right. Oh, and blog posts. It's kind of the same idea. I like doing blog posts for AEA, but that's because I like connecting with you guys. I'm not doing it because I think I'm going to, generate a lead or a new project. I think it's because I like connecting. All right. Things that I do. I find relationships. I build relationships with people. I connect with people. When I'm out of town, I'm perhaps connecting, I'm at a conference. I don't just do the conference things here and go back to my hotel room. If I can avoid doing work, I try and connect with people. I had a wonderful story. The same person that invited me to the meeting in Arizona that I showed the email about, we were in Washington, D.C. for a conference, and we said, let's go for a walk. So we walked the mall, and we ended up walking 6 miles and walked until midnight. And it was fun. It was fun, actually. It's the sort of thing I actually do. I don't think he expected to do it, but it became a long kind of challenge for him. And we bonded through that kind of interesting situation. So that's one way that I do. I build relationships just by connecting with people in very human, normal ways that are consistent with who I am and how I go about the world. Networking karma. Well, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm giving freely to you guys without any expectation of return. That's this big idea of what you put out in the world is going to come back to you in ways that are unexpected. You don't keep score. You help people out. Former client needs some help with something like I had a university reach out and say, we're thinking about this grant. Here's what we're going to do. What are your thoughts about this evaluation approach? And I said, I'd love to be your evaluator. And they're like, we can't name it. It's going to have to go through this RFP process. And I said, that's fine. Here's how I would approach it. Think about me in the future. And you know what? They took my ideas, freely gave it to them. They put it into their proposal. The proposal wasn't funded, but I created a connection with that associate dean at that university. And who knows? I think it might come back someday, or maybe it won't. And it doesn't matter. The point is I was a nice guy, helped them out in their time of need. Look for problems. Where are these things happening? Particularly, that sounds like it's a strange statement, but who needs an evaluator? Where do these people hang out? Where's that opportunity to do some work? When you're working with your clients and you see there's additional things that could happen that maybe they should be thinking about, and it's something that you can do, and it's consistent with who you are in your niche. What is that thing that you could do? So perhaps you or even know that the grants are new grants are going to be released, and realize ahead of time that you want to talk to your client about that. So if you're the one bringing that idea, that opportunity, perhaps that revenue to do the thing that serves their mission to them, they're going to be excited to want to engage with you. So that's your problem finding. Engage actively, which to me means, particularly when you're doing work, show up to meetings with your clients. If they're local, show up in person if you're being invited. I mean, don't show up in person unannounced. That would be kind of creepy. But and we're doing less of that now because we're using the Zoom, which is great. It gives us a lot more opportunity to engage with people. However, you need to show up to your meetings. So going to go back to that same example of this RFP that people are responding to. They're meeting daily, at 8:30 Arizona time or 9:30 my time. And I'm not going to try and make every one of them, but I know that if I show up frequently, they'll remember me. And there's some players here. I mean, statewide, national players here involved with this proposal process. And that's perhaps how I got that email that I showed to you here. Go to your clients' conferences. You don't, sometimes it's required, sometimes it's suggested. I think it's a great idea. And don't just go to the clients' conferences, but try presenting, because they're always looking for people to present. And usually there's people interested in talking about evaluation because, well, people still don't understand it well enough. If you can get in front of a group of people, say nice things about your clients because, you know, they're doing great things, or, you know, if it, provided they're doing great things, we assume they are. Say nice things about your clients so you get to reinforce your relationship with them. But then by doing that, you're also demonstrating how you're this awesome evaluator person. And there's likely that they'll take your card, they'll remember you, they could follow up with you. Maybe they're like, I've got this new grant coming up and can't work with my evaluator, or my evaluator just decided she's retiring. I hear this all the time. This is why you go to the client conferences, so you can engage and say, hey guys, I am an evaluator. And so they might come up to you. Now, I had a conversation earlier this week with an individual who's just getting started with her practice. And, you know, this comes up a lot. I feel like this is where this presentation has been lacking in the past. So this is a new slide I just created this morning. If I am first getting started and I have like no clients, and we like to ask this question sometimes of our guest hosts, how do you get started? And so if we're thinking specifically about marketing, what do you do? How do you start that process of connecting with people? So you want to network with existing evaluators. That's what you're doing right now. Congratulations. If you are, I said public health, or if you're into nonprofits and foundations, go to those TIG meetings. And if they're not having them, why not? You know, ask them if you can get involved. Find out who the TIG leadership is. Perhaps become part of the TIG leadership. Start meetings like this. This is how you connect with people around the things that you want to do, with people you want to hang out with. And where hypothetically there's going to be an evaluation project down the road. If you're not connecting with them, you're not going to know where the opportunities lie. And so the more the closer you can connect with people, the better you're going to be situated to find out what's going on within the world that you care about. If and where appropriate, you don't want to look like you're trying to step in on somebody else's territory where they're already got evaluation contracts, but where there's existing funded directors doing work, like what you want to do, ask them for their opinion on how you get started in evaluation. Oftentimes when you ask for advice, you might actually get projects. You might get an opportunity down the road. If you ask, this is what program officer once said, if you ask for advice, you might get money. If you ask for money, you're generally going to get advice. So always ask for advice. Most people are interested in having a 15-minute conversation with you and just kind of give you some help. They were all there once upon a time, and they've moved along in their career, and a lot of us want to give back to our community. If there's a funding organization that you know about that you'd like to work for, let's just say National Science Foundation NOYS, and the program officer is going to hold an open meeting for anybody. Primarily that's for how do you write the grant, right? But you should go to those meetings. A, you can learn how to write the grant. Two, you're going to find people are there who are trying to write grants and perhaps haven't thought about who their evaluator will be. And so you could say, hey, I'm an evaluator. I'm just here to figure out how to write the evaluation section. And then you might be surprised that people are following up with you. So go to those meetings to the extent it makes any sense and it's possible for you. You know, have that one-on-one 15-minute conversation with a program officer and say, hey, I'm an evaluator trying to break into this world. I've got all these great background. I've done all these wonderful things. Got this great resume. How do I connect with people to make sure I can support your programs? And you'd be surprised at a lot of program officers. Right now I'm talking program officers, and I think about it from the US perspective. They're a lot less available to have a 15-minute chat nowadays because of all the things that have happened in Washington, D.C. and the cuts. But generally, program officers would like to have that conversation anyway. They might be able to. Present. Present on evaluation. I think earlier in the surveys I was talking about giving presentations. So the not so secret, it's not secret at all, is you should be connecting with your grant writers, particularly those who are looking for evaluators. They're always looking for evaluators. They always want to know people who can support what they're trying to do. Frankly, they're scared to write the evaluation section, and they are very frequently asking for evaluators to help them out, and they'll convince the client to put you in as the named sole source evaluator if they can. But going out to the GPA, or Grant Professionals Association, is one example of a place where you can get in front of people who often are looking for evaluators to do work and talk about evaluations. Give a presentation on a logic model. We all should be able to do that. That's a great example. Think about pro bono projects. Well, we've done a whole session on pro bono projects. Think about pro bono from the perspective of you're doing a free project for a client who may be interested in paying you in the future. So you want to make it limited. You don't want to make it, you want a limited piece of time, limited scope of work, not an open-ended piece. And then lastly, do good work. Actually, once you get into this world of program evaluation, you've got existing clients. If you're doing good work, they want to continue to work with you as they're pursuing the next thing. And so if they like you, they want to continue working with you. And that's why I get back to the beginning where I said your next project is likely to come from one of your current clients. All right. So lastly, I want to thank Laura Keene. This is her area for our presentation, and the first handful of slides were hers. The rest of it, most of it's my material, but I think I should give recognition where recognition is due, because this is the thing that she brought. Anyway, I'm going to stop recording. So for you guys who are here, be excited to see what you think. Particularly, be interested in anybody who wants to share what they think a new consultant should be doing. But for the people who are out in YouTube land, we'll see you later. But if you're live, stick around.